Matt Kean,
Yes, I saw that.
the new chair of the Climate Change Authority. Is that a treacherous act from a former Liberal minister?
Oh, I mean, Matt's obviously served the Liberal Party in the New South Wales Parliament with distinction as a minister, and he's now setting himself up for a post-political career. So that's his prerogative to do so. I've been a Victorian, haven't met Matt before, but what I would say in this role, I hope he takes into consideration the importance of the role he holds, but also making sure that those three tenets of the energy system, lower emissions to get to net zero, lower prices and reliability in the grid, all three are looked at. One of the criticisms that I've had consistently of this government is that they have myopically focused on emissions. You know, even their legislation they brought in for 42 or 43%, did not have any provisions in it for price or for reliability. That they require them, and this is a really important point.
But you know the Liberal Party well. You
Yes.
don't know New South Wales Liberals
Yeah.
as close as you do Victoria. But
Yep.
will they be annoyed?
I think there will be some colleagues, particularly, and those that know Matt well and are from New South Wales will be more engaged in this and will have their own opinions. I think some people will be a bit surprised and frustrated, although Matt has...
What about members? What about
I think the Liberal members would be quite disappointed. I would assume it's always dangerous to make assumptions on behalf of other people, but I think there would be a level of disappointment from some people. But as I said, you know, I think Matt's still in the Parliament, but he's announced he's leaving. You know, you do need to be able to set yourself up post career. His comments will be interesting moving forward. But I do just want to make this quick point on the Climate Change Authority and even the legislation the government brought in. One of my criticisms at the time was it requires the minister to announce and give an update on emissions reductions every year, but it does not require the minister to give an update on price in the system or on reliability in the system. And they're as important as getting to net zero emissions by 2050. So there's a lot that Matt hopefully can play a constructive role and look at all technology options.
Does it undermine the coalition on nuclear, though? Because straight away today he said his experience, his advice when he was minister not that long ago was that nuclear just doesn't stack up.
Well, there's lots of advice out there. There's also lots of vested interests, and I see some of the reporting with clear vested interests. He's now becoming the chair of the authority. And this is where he's going to have an important role to play, and I hope he takes a leadership role of looking at the science. I mean, there is 19 out of 20 G20 countries that are either nuclear nations, rely on energy from a nuclear nation, or are moving to nuclear. So the government still haven't answered the question of what do they know that these 19 other countries don't.
Well, their argument is that we have the natural resources that those countries don't.
Which is ironic because we also have one of the highest deposits of uranium resources in the world as well. So the same argument is we have lots of competitive advantages in nuclear, and as we've said as a coalition, we need to move that mix to all three of nuclear, gas and renewable.
Is it a policy that's going to fly, though, do you think, in, say, your neck of the woods? Is it something that will be popular? I know there's not going to be not going to be the reactor there.
I think people are up for the conversation, and people, what the Australian people want, what the people in Casey want, is they definitely want cheaper bills. They want reliable energy. And it's not because of the transition, but in my community, we had a massive storm that resulted in community members without power for months. And when you lose, I was this is pre-politics, but I was 3 weeks without power. And when you lose your power for that time, what it teaches you is how reliant we are on energy and how we can take for granted turning the light on. And just to be really clear, I'm not saying that those storms had anything to do with the transition. It's just an example of how important reliable energy is for business, for communities. And what my community wants is all three to be addressed.
Do you welcome this mandatory code for supermarkets, the code of conduct?
Yes.
Review done by Craig Emerson.
Yep.
Government's adopting all 11 recommendations, including some pretty potentially tough fines if supermarkets breach the code of conduct.
Yeah, so I've been watching this with interest. I used to work for about a decade supplying Woolworths and Coles in big multinationals like Mars and small business. I haven't had a chance to read it in detail. What I've read is interesting and it looks broadly to be supportive, but there's a couple of points I want to make. What this code is actually addressing is the imbalance between the power of Woolworths and Coles versus the supplier, and it's got a key role to play there. But this is not going to bring prices down. This is not a cost of living relief measure. I saw the Treasurer trying to run that line today. Anyone in the industry will tell you this is not going to bring prices down. It's going to ensure better practice for small businesses, for large businesses, to ensure they get their fair share. But to spin it as a cost of living measure is pure politics, because it's not.
Aaron Violi, thanks. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kieran.